second to get back over, okay?
We're back. So sorry about that, everyone. That was all me.
Oh my gosh.
I hit the wrong button and disconnected the broadcast. So
give everybody a minute to get over here, because people are probably wondering what the heck happened. And I couldn't give anybody any warning.
I want to get right back into it because this isn't just for live people. This is for all time. So they'll be back. And look, I'm very sorry. I hit the button. I screwed up. So I meant to hit the stop screen share button, and instead I hit the stop broadcast button. So that's even worse. Let me just make sure that we got the right microphone and all of that. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So there we go. So I thought Harry Reid's statement was like quite shocking that he would say such a thing for a televised show. Basically, I mean, I interpreted that as him saying, yes, I totally agree with Robert Bigelow that there are aliens that are here. It sure as heck what it sounded like to me. So I thought, my goodness, that's definitely a significant statement. I mean, these are things that would never have come out 2 years ago. Like never.
Right.
So here's the thing. Is there an agenda? Well, maybe part of the agenda is actually achieving some form of disclosure. Like, that's a legitimate thing to ask. Are they attempting that? And I think, ask yourself this: is there any way to achieve a safe version of disclosure? And if you were in the classified world and you had information that that you wanted to get to the rest of the world, but you were bound by security oaths and all of this stuff, how would you go about and do it?
Right.
Like, it's a very difficult scenario. It's a very difficult path to walk through. So there's no easy way to get this information out. And also, if you're going to achieve any kind of disclosure, at some point or another, information is going to have to come from the hierarchy, from our political masters, from the masters of the universe, as I call them. That is, the people who own everything, because they've got all the information. Like, it's just, years and years ago, I envisioned the possibility that disclosure would happen, that the people would make it happen, that we would get, the right citing out and the right documentation out, and it would just break the walls of secrecy. But I don't think that we live in that kind of a world. I think we live in a world that's very, very controlled. Now, not controlled necessarily monolithically, but there's a definite centralized control that's going on. You look at our media, you look at our intelligence community. But within that world, it's also true that there are factions going on. There are powerful different factions. I personally believe that's what we're seeing here. And the question is this a nefarious faction that's pushing this disclosure narrative or not? All that I've heard is that people are saying, well, they're CIA, they're pushing an agenda. But what's the agenda? To create fear, to increase the military budget? Well, I got news for you. If you want to create fear and to create a 24/7 global surveillance state, you don't need UFO disclosure for that. That's already happening. Like, that's already practically here. So to me, I'm looking at this is something else. And fundamentally, I would just say it's important that we understand who these guys are and what their agendas might be. But the fact is, while we're talking about that, we're really talking about maybe, what if, I'm guessing, and this and that, rather than talking about the actual content of what they are delivering. Right. And in my view, the content is something that is frequently lost in the shuffle when I'm hearing critiques of these guys. Like, I don't really hear a lot of people talking about the actual information that they're presenting to the public and to a very large public. A very large public. So I'm just going to say, like, I support that message. I support the fact that they are promoting and providing information on the Tic Tac UFO case. I support the fact that they've gotten these additional witnesses from the U.S. Navy to talk about it. Kevin Day, just one of several outstanding witnesses who talked about this. I support the fact that they've described these sightings concerning the USS Roosevelt over a period of maybe 250, 270 days in a row off the US East Coast. That's incredible. I support, at least as far as I can see, how they treated a lot of these other UFO incidents dealing with nuclear installations and the like. I think they were wrong with how they handled the Italian connection, but everything else, I think they did a very good job. So that's important content that's changing the nature of the discussion that we've got going on here in this world. Now, where it's going to lead is another question. And I've been saying all along, disclosure is a dangerous game, and I don't know where this is going to lead. And the UFO subject can't, in my view, can't be tamed. If I was going to have any other significant critique of them, it would be this. It is that they are siphoning all the history out of the UFO subject in the way that they're handling this. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying this from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Hell, this happened way back when Hillary Clinton's talking to Jimmy Kimmel and saying, no, it's UAP, Jimmy, it's UAP. Right. When clearly, like, she didn't even really have an obvious handle on the subject. That was evident. So clearly there's a rebranding going on here, mm-hmm. and that rebranding is involving siphoning out all the history to kind of scrub the face of the UFO phenomenon for the rest of the world to take a fresh look at it.
Don't you think it's possible, though, that if they were to go into a second season, they might start to, like they're introducing it now in this particular way, and once there's sort of more of a public acceptance, I mean, we're definitely not at that level yet, but it's possible that they could begin to bring in deeper information.
They're already doing that. So, there are statements by George Knapp toward the end of the series where he's talking about his take on the presidents. And George is in a good position to know this. He's talked with a lot of people over the years. And George Knapp was saying, look, U.S. presidents clearly, in his view, are by and large out of the loop. They don't have a lot of power relating to the UFO phenomenon. I tend to agree with that. Mm-hmm. So, but that's an important political statement that they put into that show. It's significant. So, and then, let's keep in mind when they're describing the Tic Tac encounter of 2004, how they're describing these unknown guys in suits coming onto the USS Princeton and stealing all of the data
immediately as well.
And this is 3 years before the ATIP program was supposed to exist.
Right.
So who's running the UFO data?
Right.
Someone was.
Which reminds me, we have to get to Tom's tweets.
I want to go to DeLong's tweet. Yes, absolutely. So let me just pull that up. And
Tom's tweets. That should be a
Tom's tweet. I want to make sure that I don't disconnect us this time. I'm not going to make the same mistake. This is a tweet from Tom DeLong just
we have to talk about this.
A couple of days ago.
Yeah.
This is July 7th. So let me just read this. So DeLong writes, what if the $22 million spent on ATIP was only the amount of unclassified money that could be discussed? What if there was hundreds of millions more that can't be discussed because of the classified elements it was related to? Little wink. And that's DeLong. I'm not going to stop the broadcast this time. I'm just going to stop the screen share, and we're back on here. So that's a very significant thing to say. And actually, here, I'm going to do a little screen share because I wrote this out in prep for this. So there's 3 ways you can approach this tweet. You can look at the tweet and just say, it's not important and it's disinformation because it's TTSA. You could also go the opposite way and say, hey, it's TTSA, so I'm just going to believe everything that Tom DeLong and Lou Elizondo say. Or you can do what I think I would like to do, which is to consider that there may be truth in this and treat it as a breadcrumb to be investigated. And I would say that's what you want to do. I don't think DeLong is BSing us here on this one. I think he's got reasons for saying what he said. And furthermore, I think it's absolutely true. We were getting this information back in 2017 when the first New York Times and Politico piece came out, that there was definitely the belief that there were multiple programs, much more than just the ATIP program. So there's more out there. And I'll just mention, I didn't talk about this with you before we did the show, but I think 12 or 13 years ago, I was in touch with a man who is, he's long since retired. He was a civilian employee of the United States Navy, and he had retired with a very high level of rank within that structure. And we were friends. He was a big fan of what I was writing back then. He lived in DC, and he said to me on one occasion that he was in contact with a congressional staffer. And keep in mind, a congressional staffer is not someone who's just some 19-year-old intern. These are career people, very experienced, very sophisticated individuals. He said he had a conversation with one congressional staffer who said to him, this has got to be 2004, 2005, that there was a UFO program, a secret classified UFO program that was utterly immense, of great scope and power within the bureaucracy. And that was connected to the executive branch of government. Now, I never got any more information on it than that.
That's too bad.
I don't know. I mean, it's a significant statement. And all I'll say about this gentleman is that he's a very impressive guy. I was very good friends with him for a while. I'm not even sure if he's alive, but I should try to look him up again. But this is what he said to me. So the point is, now, do I believe it? Yes, I happen to believe it. I can't prove it, but I think it's probably true. So we're talking about very significant programs that are going on. And this is another thing, like one thing Chris Mellon said that is clearly not accurate on the face of it, when he makes these statements multiple times, like, well, we just have to stop the apathy within the military, within the government. When there's UFO sightings, people don't seem to care, like nothing's ever done. Now, on one level, that's just totally not true. It's very obvious that there are classified programs that are very significant, and they're handling in this, all right? You know, the response to the Tic Tac incident on the Princeton, I think, proves that.
Right.
On the other hand, I mean, one thing Mellon's doing is he's playing a little game here. You know, he's saying things that are for public consumption, clearly, and for political effect. And it would be true to say that within the non-classified portions of the military and of the rest of the world, this subject does get ignored, and there isn't follow-up. And so that part, I think, is fair to say. So he's playing a bit of a double game here. But is that... Oh, that's the old screenshot. Yeah, that's the one I disconnected. Sorry. So in that sense, you know, a lot of what these guys are saying is clearly designed for public consumption and for political effect.
Right.
It's very obvious.
Right.
And are they doing it to you know, fulfill the agenda of the CIA and to scare the bejesus out of the American public, to increase defense expenditures? That seems like a real long shot to me, to be honest with you. Or are they taking little baby steps in the only way that really would be possible? If you're going to do a disclosure scenario, you're going to have enemies all around you. And it seems to me that they're playing this game as carefully as they can. And the other thing I guess I'll just mention is this statement that James Ian Dolan was kind enough to give to me as well. And this is with permission of all parties, or at least of Rich Hoffman, I understand. So I want to thank these guys. But this is something this is a reliable statement, and this was sent to James from Rich Hoffman, who is a board member of what's called the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. And you can see there's Hoffman with Lou Elizondo. What Hoffman said is that, as follows: Lou Elizondo told me straight out that these clips, that is the FLIR one, the gimbal, the Go Fast video,
Excuse me.
You know, the videos that we've all seen, are not the whole video, which, yeah, we kind of know this. That, in fact, there was incredible evidence showing performance beyond our capabilities in the remaining portions that are indeed classified. The general public is getting just a taste, but not the full meal. The senators got the full meal in the recent briefings. So again, that's I want to thank James Ziandoli of the YouTube channel Engaging the Phenomenon for that. Thank you, James. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, evidently. Guys like me, I'm not part of it. None of these people have ever called me. I don't consult with them. They don't ask for my opinion on anything. So I'm an outsider looking in just like everybody else. Every now and then I'll send off an email to Putoff. He's like the one guy there that I know. And that is the extent of my inside knowledge on any of this. So all I do is observe like anyone else.
I want to ask you a question about Putoff that someone had in the comments.
Sure.
The only guy in Undisclosed that is not speaking, and I would submit to you, I'm just reading it the way this person wrote it, and I would submit to you, that's the wrong one. Hang on a second. They were asking, where's Putoff in all of this? Oh yeah. Why do you think the only person that was not heard from and unidentified was Dr. Putoff? I'm convinced he has a bulk of answers and he is not willing to share. What's the deal? Of course. Well, not only did he not speak in unidentified, he didn't speak he was the one person who did not speak during the TTSA event back from October of 2017. He was the only one who just sat there and never said a thing. So what's up with that? That's a really good question. I don't have the answer to that. Maybe it's not time yet. I mean, I don't know, just purely speculating.
Look, I'm going to say this. That man knows a lot. He is very, very, very well plugged into a lot of answers, in my opinion. And this is not from anything explicitly that he has told me, but it's very obvious to me. He knows a lot. He is their science and technology vice president of science and technology, I think. So, look, all you have to know about Hal Putoff is his phenomenal, and I mean bombshell speech that he gave in June of 2018. And this is for the SSE, the Society of Scientific Exploration. If you do not know what I'm talking about, go to Vimeo, drop your $5, pay to watch the speech. It's worth it. And it's a heck of a thing where he's talking about the metamaterials and crash retrieval of UFOs. And I mean, he really gets into it. And it's a very sophisticated presentation. So yes, there's no question he knows a great deal,
I want to bring up something to do with Tom DeLonge. This was a question from Peter. As you know, the show is only one aspect of DeLonge's project. One of the other aspects is the book series, Secret Machines, both the fiction and nonfiction, in which he is laying out a fairly disturbing thesis on what the phenomenon may be. He's also addressed this in his past appearances on Coast to Coast and Fade to Black. It appears to me that the purpose of Unidentified is TTSA's continuing effort to get the general population to accept the phenomenon as true and worthy of examination. This is a laudable goal in and of itself, but it is also an essential foundation to proceeding with DeLonge's overall thesis on what the phenomenon is and what the goals may be.
Right. So I think that's quite accurate. It's very obvious, you know, when you go through Secret Machines and his other statements, that, and this is a criticism right out of the gate, is that he's very friendly to these insiders, these intelligence operatives and these national security people who are, you know, they're the white hats in his portrayal of it. And I think when that first came out initially, there were a lot of people who were kind of shocked by this. It's like, what? And I still remain very skeptical of the goals of the national security community and its relationship to UFOs. I don't see them as the white hats necessarily at all. I mean, these are people who have worked on behalf of a lot of really bad goals, in my view, and on behalf of aggrandizing power, and they've got the dominant element of the UFO secret. So all of that is true. Now, what DeLonge is about is, I think he is genuinely in favor of a true UFO disclosure. I've never seen any indication otherwise, pointing in any other way than that. And so the real question is he being used by them? I mean, this is the obvious question. And some people are just absolutely convinced that that's the case. And I think what you're really seeing is that they're using each other. I think he's using them and they're using him.
We would never have proof of that. So it's speculation, right?
Proof that he's being used.
Yeah.
No. Well, you can infer, I suppose, but I would agree. I think that, we're coming down to, we're going to have a lot of discussions moving forward on the interpretation of where this is all going.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely support that we analyze the motives of these people, but I would also not support, out of the gate, just condemning them.
Right.
When we don't really know where this is going. We really do not know where this is going. So I'm not going to go and start condemning these people at TTSA because they have an intelligence community background. The fact is, if you're going to get a disclosure, you're going to need those people at some point. They're going to be part of the game because they've got information that the rest of us don't have. What we have to do is look at the information they're giving us with a critical eye and ask ourselves, is it true? Is it not true? In my own estimation, I'm not perfect at doing this. I just do my best. I think most of what they put out is true. I think some of what they put out in unidentified doesn't seem to be true. And so that's how I'm looking at it.
What part are you referring to? You're referring to the Italian government part?
Yeah, the Italian government part I think was totally wrong. And then the other thing is simply this idea of where they're really dancing around acting as if there was never any UFO investigation prior to 2004. I mean, it's total nonsense. We're learning all of this thing about this unknown phenomenon. Like, are you kidding me? They've been, the U.S. intelligence community has been looking at this since forever. Now, what is very likely the case, I think we would have to consider that ATIP was created as an attempt by, let's say, the Bigelow faction to get their own hooks into this phenomenon from with U.S. government backing. Like, I think that's actually what we're seeing is essentially a gambit of the modern day aviary, right, to get their own defense contract to get a piece of the action, as it were, in the classified UFO world. So what I will suspect, and I would love to hear other people's opinion on this, is that ATIP was a new study that genuinely was starting maybe at ground zero. It's very possible, we can speculate here, that they did not have access to the really deep black budget programs that were going on. When we look at the Wilson leak, for example, his conversation with Eric Davis, Wilson, who's talking with the gatekeepers of a private contractor, which speculations got Lockheed Martin as being that contractor. But whoever it is, that would be a program that's been going for a long time. And I don't think ATIP would have anything to do with that. This could be Harry Reid and Bigelow's attempt to get their own hooks into a new UFO study to see what they could find. And I think that's entirely possible. I mean, there's a lot more work that needs to be done on that, but I think that's something that people really ought to consider.
Okay, I don't know if you want to take this one or not. I'm just going to check over a couple of other questions that I had while you look at them. So
this individual writes, Mr. Dolan, isn't the privatization of the field, that is TTSA, NIDS, and the like, worse than government? Is this the same person? The only guy on undisclosed that is, oh no, this is someone else.
Although we may as well finish that. I started it once and then you started it once.
Well, so it's not related. So I think I'm just I'm going to leave that out.
It's only a statement.
Is the privatization of the field with TTSA, NIDS, and the likes worse than the government? I don't think so. No, I think that you want private individuals involved in this. And what you don't want is privatization and sequestering of the knowledge. So if you've got private, I mean, I'm a private researcher. So, it's private researchers, individuals coming in from all perspectives, in my view, that are really going to make the best contributions to this. Now, we want our government to be responsive to us. The whole point of government by and for the people is that it works for us. And so I feel as corrupt as that system has become, and it is very corrupt, it's our job never, ever to give up on the demand that those people respond to us as citizens. So we want a responsive government in its UFO investigation, and it is essential, in my view, for a healthy public discourse that we have that. But I think that privatization of UFO research is necessary if we're going to make some progress. So I got nothing against TTSA doing what they want to do. If they want to make money off of it as well, that's their right. What I don't want them to do, what no one wants them to do, is to confuse the field with misinformation. But as I said earlier, I don't think by and large that they've done that. There's confusion over Elizondo's background. Was he with ATIP or not? You've got the Pentagon, Christopher Sherwood saying no. You've got other people saying he is. You've got this new statement that there's been multiple programs running. There's a lot we don't have. My friend and colleague, John Greenwald, who I have total respect for, has done a lot of investigation of Elizondo, and he's very deeply suspicious of Elizondo, to put it mildly. I'm not sure where I stand on this. I want to see how this plays out. I'm not willing just to say that this man is a fraud. I think that's way premature. Just because the Pentagon spokesperson says something, like, that's not reason for me to say, oh yes, I'm going to believe everything coming out of the Pentagon spokesperson. What I think we're looking at is a series of is a power struggle within factions of the government. Some people make it out as if it's the old Hillary Clinton faction versus the Trump faction. Maybe there's something to that. The TTSA people were friendly with Podesta, and through Podesta, of course, Hillary Clinton. She didn't get elected. According to, the plan didn't happen. She was supposed to get elected. She didn't get elected. Trump's in there. And it's worth trying to figure out what is the dynamic here. And I'm not sure I get the full dynamic. I'm not sure if anyone really has this full dynamic going on. But I would like to know where these TTSA people are in relation to President Trump, because he's been talking about this lately as well. Tucker Carlson. I mean, unbelievably, he's in Asia with Trump, does an interview with Trump, and ends the interview with talking about UFOs.
I know.
And Trump gives his classic
non-answer. Though, just to even ask these questions point blank, what a different landscape we're talking about.
And by the way, now I don't know if this happened live on Fox, but I know on the YouTube thing, the very next thing Carlson did is he interviewed Nick Pope.
Yeah.
On that.
Which was quite good,
so
actually.
Clearly.
I mean, not that Nick isn't normally, he always is, but I mean.
Well, Nick pointed out one thing that I think is true, and one thing that I'm going to disagree with Nick on. But Nick said it was refreshing that you get a president showing real candor on UFOs, which I would disagree with. I don't think Trump was showing candor at all. But then Nick did say there was no snark, there was no joking,
he wasn't making fun of it.
Woo, and that's absolutely true. So think about how far our public discourse has come in just a couple of years, that this is now the way it is. Like, Trump was not making jokes about it. He was taking it very seriously. Carlson was taking it seriously. So I think that's quite significant. Very significant.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're bouncing around here. Anything else you got?
There's a lot of things. Now, we had this question. It's not related. We might want to save it for another show.
Let's save that for another time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're going to probably end it there. I mean, it was interesting because they did come out and say that that the program was still running with official blessing. Remember, they said that in episode 6. I think.
Yeah, Elizondo said ATIP or whatever its successor program is still running with official blessing. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a few interesting things said there, and also the criticism of the military. I mean,
by and large, what you have to say is there's a tremendous amount of information that came out in that series. A tremendous amount, and not trivial information. Like, it was a great amount of relevant information that is going to have a powerful public impact. It seems to me that this is not going to go away. So now, I've been saying for years and years that when there's a disclosure, do not expect it to be a fully honest disclosure. Expect there to be spin. Expect there to be lies. Absolutely. But I think let's have some perspective here. You're going to have a disclosure that's always going to be a messy process. It is up to researchers and an engaged public to call out the lies when they happen, to call out the incorrect perspective when it happens. But what I'm not going to do is shoot the messenger because I don't like where they're from. What I'm not going to do is say it's all disinformation because it's all CIA people. I'm not going to do that. If I'm going to criticize it, I'm going to criticize what they say. I'm going to criticize the content of their information. I'm going to say that this is incorrect, where it's incorrect. If it's correct and if it's relevant, I'm going to say, yes, good job, because that's what we need. We need correct and relevant information on this subject out for the public, for all of us to talk about, so that we can actually have an intelligent public discourse on UFOs, which we've never had. Like in my whole lifetime, in your lifetime, it's never happened. Right. In the general mainstream public, it's never happened. You know, we get these little specials on cable TV every now and then, a little he said, she said, what if they're here, you know, and then they bring in the dumb skeptic who doesn't know anything and says, no, it's impossible. And that's where we're left. So finally, we've gotten past that. And in the last 2 years, we've actually moved like a significant into a completely new territory here, you know, qualitatively different. So look, my take is this is how I see this as a positive overall, with the reservation of making sure that, you know, there are no untruths here. And also, I just want to come back to this one last thing that I think is a significant problem that I do have. And I've talked about it many times, which is the rebranding of UFOs to UAP or something like that. I understand why they're doing it. I think I understand. I think that they've rebranded UFOs. They've siphoned out the history because they're trying to repackage it, scrub its face, and get it in front of a very hostile establishment.
Right.
So that it will actually be looked at.
So you're saying it's somewhat justified?
It's a tactic.
Right.
I mean, I see it as a tactic. Now, that's fine as long as we recognize that it's a tactic and it's not a long-term strategy. If they're going to continue to roll out UFOs as this, we don't know what they are kind of a thing, which I don't think they're doing, without the history, then I think, you know, we've got to become very, very strong in critiquing that. But they're not really even doing that. Like Elizondo on May 31st is on Carlson's show, and he says point blank, we've had crash retrievals of UFOs. Like, good grief. Just puts it right out there. Which, by the way, that's true. Of course they have crash retrievals of UFOs. So the fact that you've got a career intelligence officer, as he's always described, who gets nothing but media love, and he's saying we've had crash retrievals of UFOs, do you realize how significant a statement that is? That's massive. So, yeah, I think, you know, I support that. And I support that to the extent that they're putting out true information. What they're going to find, all right, if those people at TTSA really believe, or if the CIA, whoever they are, really believes that they're going to fully manage this disclosure process, they're very mistaken. All right, it's not possible. This subject, this phenomenon is too wild. This is the true Wild West. UFOs. This is a phenomenon that they cannot tame, they cannot control. They're not going to be able to. So once they're going to get to a tipping point, an avalanche moment, it's going to happen when enough toothpaste gets out of that tube and more is coming out. You're going to get to a point of no return. You're going to get to a point where too much has come out, too much has been confirmed, and too many doors are now open. And that's when they're going, not may, they will lose control of this whole conversation. I don't think they realize, like, they're this close right now. They're this close.
It's funny because we're all looking at this one show, Unidentified. You know, we're so focused on that, but in no time at all, you know, other shows like this could be cropping up.
That's a good point.
And having their own take on this. So it'll be interesting if suddenly it gets flooded with this, because now there is all of this attention, Tucker Carlson, and, it's showing up everywhere in the media. So that could happen. A whole bunch of this new type of show that these guys sort of set the pace for, but they go off in their own directions.
The way it is, like these TV shows, they're, my experience with them over the years is that there's a definite corporate control that exists over these shows.
Right.
All right. Now, having said that, over the years, I've participated in a number of these shows that I think have done a very good job in promoting the truth about the UFO phenomenon. Like, they haven't all been whitewashes. In fact, I've never willingly participated in a whitewash. I've always tried to give it my best shot in describing the truth of this. So I think what we are going to be seeing is a lot of these production companies are going to be greenlit by History Channel and by Sci-Fi Channel and the others, and maybe some major networks. I wouldn't rule it out, but they're going to get greenlit for doing shows like this.
Whereas before they probably wouldn't make it through the gate, but now it's becoming a global interest.
Right, I think so. So I think we are going to see more of this. Now, if they're going to play up the threat,
they may not all do that. I mean, it would be smart for some of them to take different angles instead of everyone taking the same angle. So, but
I think, I don't want to overstate this. I really wonder when I hear some of the people talking about, threat, fear mongering. Like, what would be the response if I were to write my 2 volumes of national security, UFOs and national security today? I think people would accuse me of fear mongering, when in fact, all I'm doing is going through the historical record and finding many, many hundreds of military cases and encounters of UFOs. That's not fear mongering. That's just going through the historical record and finding these cases, which are true. Like, our military has engaged in UFOs. Like, do you want to just pretend they haven't? They've done it. And they've done it many, many times. And it's baffling to them. And they don't know what to do about it. Like, they don't know how to handle this. So do you want to just pretend that's not the case? Be my guest, but it's still true. So I think, we've got to recognize that when we talk about the serious, grave nature of this phenomenon, that's not necessarily fear mongering. All right. That's just being truthful. And I think we need to recognize that there's a legitimate part here of talking about this as a potential threat.
Just in case, because I did speak over Richard when he said that. He said, what would happen if I released my books now? My 2 volumes.
Right.
I just was worried people didn't actually hear what you were going into there. Yeah, which I think is a great point.
So I mean, I don't know. I think overall, I want to see more of what they do. I don't agree with the people who are calling this a CIA op. Not yet. I'm not. You're going to need to show me more than what has been shown thus far. And even more important than that, if you're going to call us an op, you've got to describe what is the nature of this op. What are they really trying to do? And be specific. All right. It's not helpful to just call every single thing disinformation. There's one thing being critically minded, and there's another thing being so, like a knee-jerk critical reaction because you don't like the people involved in this. Like, that's not helpful either. So let's focus on what the content is. Always content first. Content first. Then you get into the context. Don't reverse it. Like, a lot of people will reverse it. They're like analyzing these perceived motivations of these people due to their connections and all of that. Don't do that first. It's a big mistake. It's an easy way to get tangled up. So listen to what is being said, analyze the message, study the facts, critique the facts, do all of that, then get into everything else. But don't lose sight of the message while you're critiquing the messengers.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, and like I say to anyone who may be disagreeing with me, I'm not here to attack any one person. It's not about that at all. It's all about ideas. It's all about information. And I think this can all be done in a very professional way. We don't have to be calling each other out and attacking each other. I'm not about that. And I'm not interested in wasting my time or anyone else's time with that type of behavior. But I do think that I wanted to provide my own different perspective than some other people. And I know, by the way, there's a lot of folks who support what I'm saying and what we're saying. I get emails all the time, people who are from individuals who very strongly support the perspective that I've just laid out. And there's a lot of people out there, and I think they're very level-headed and careful in their analysis, and they don't blindly go one way or another on this. So, yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
All right. There's lots of other, good things about the shows. Obviously, I'm always looking at the perspective of experiencers. Talk about fear. People like the pilots, people who've been experiencing these things over the year, and they've had no outlet. And this group has helped in that respect. I always point this out, but it's important to me because I know how important that is to them. I mean, we're talking probably about thousands of people having sightings or encounters that they can't talk about. They're completely isolated with these things. And all of a sudden now they have an outlet, a seemingly safe outlet to report and think about these things. So that is super significant.
I agree with you. And before I forget, I want to mention one other thing we talked about before, which is this whole thing of Elizondo basically wrapping himself in the American flag during all of these episodes. And I mean, it's a very obvious thing. So here's Lou Elizondo, career intelligence officer, and he's got the American flag on his cap. And this is a very patriotic, pro-American national defense kind of a narrative. And he's done that throughout all 6 episodes. Now, I know there's people who say, well, I hate that. That's, nationalistic, fascistic, BS, whatever. I would point out that for years and decades and generations that people who have talked about the UFO cover-up, like myself, have been accused countless times of being anti-American. I mean, back in the 1970s and 80s, the mendacious Philip J. Klass, a man that any skeptic should be ashamed to be affiliated with in any way. He was really the man who gives skeptics a truly bad name. But Klass would go out of his way to smear UFO conspiracy people with the idea that they were aiding and abetting the Soviet Union and communism. And I am not making this up. And he would play this little game of saying they're doing the work of the Russians by undermining belief in the U.S. government. What a load of crap that was. I did a documentary 15 years ago on, I think it was on MJ12. Stan Friedman was on there, and we were both pretty prominent in that. And they had a member of PsyCop named Joe Nickel, he's still out there. And he made this similarly ridiculous statement that people who question, who talk about UFO conspiracies are undermining belief in the United States government. And I thought, holy crap, they're still playing this game in the 21st century. So look at that perspective, right? And now fast forward to where we are today. And what they've done at TTSA is very smart. It is a very smart move. You wrap yourself in the flag. You talk about a cover-up, but you do it as a patriotic American. And they've done that very successfully. And that's not an insignificant thing. So it's a very, very important tactic. And I think they've been 100% successful in putting themselves, reversing the roles, in other words, by saying, as patriotic Americans, we are, convinced that we need to reinvestigate this. This is a tactic that was done in the 50s by people like Donald Kehoe. Same kind of thing. As a patriotic American, we need to look into this. And so they're doing the same thing here, and I think it's very effective.
So even though you're saying they're sort of, this is a strategy,
right?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think Elizondo is being genuine, however.
Oh, yeah.
That's just me. I'm sure people are going to jump on me for saying
that. No, I
but
think he probably is. Now, I've never met him, but look, guys who've done that amount of work for their government for that many decades, of course they're going to have the flag in front of their house, and they're going to, that's their belief. That's a really powerful thing.
Very patriotic. So.
And it's something to respect, in my opinion. You got to respect that. That's where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, yeah, I'm not trying to
not
imply
just a strategy. I just wanted to point that out.
But it is a strategy too.
Yes, yes.
It's both.
Yes, yes. It's good to recognize that. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we probably kept you guys here long enough. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we've been. I'm sorry that I disconnected us midway through. That was all me. We missed last week, and I kind of forgot what to do, and I hit the wrong button, and so I got to start up again. So my bad.
I want to thank you all for being here with us. Thank everybody in chat, big chat family that's always here. We didn't really get to see you tonight personally, but we want to thank you because we know that you're there, because we're getting questions from Pursuing X. And just to remind you that we will not be here next Tuesday because we are traveling to the UK, because we have a conference in Manchester, awakeningufo.com. And then we're going to be in Copenhagen for ufodenmark.com if you want to look it up.
Right.
But we are going to do some, we're going to probably experiment with some live streams. And if you want to see what we're up to, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and sign up for notifications. That way you'll just be able to keep track of everything that we put out. You'll get an email notification every time we upload something new or we go live.
I will do a Saturday live stream this week as well, so you can look forward to that. And by the way, if you watch this show but you don't subscribe to our channel, I would say, look, consider subscribing. If you like what you see, if you subscribe, you'll help us out, because subscribers is always nice to have in this day and age. It's like your social media. How do you want to say? Like your that's your social media power.
Currency,
it helps us. Social currency.
Yeah.
It helps me. It helps us.
Yeah.
But also it helps you if you subscribe. You can get notifications, and this way you don't miss when we come on.
It's a nice way to support Richard's work that's absolutely free.
So be a sport. Subscribe.
Okay. Anyhow, we just want to thank you all for being here. We weren't watching everything, but I can just see a few of our regulars there in chat. We just want to say hi to you all. And
smash the button.
This is an ongoing conversation. So everything we said here is probably going to evolve over time.
Undoubtedly.
Yes.
Well said.
So
all right.
We hope you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful week. And we will see you on Saturday.
Keep rocking in the free world. That's my current retro expression that I like. Yeah. I know it's old. What can I say?
He says it to 16-year-olds and they have no idea what he's
They're
talking
like, who
about.
is this old guy talking about rocking in the what? All right. Anyway, have a great evening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.